Whether you've just received your first Airsoft AEG or maybe you're shopping for one, we are super excited for you to send some rounds downrange and see what the sport is all about. But here are a few tips we've collected over the years that will hopefully make your first experience safe and headache-free. This video is just meant to be an intro, so we will focus on the more crucial info we think new players should know. But if you have any tips to add, definitely leave it in the comments. Starting with the most important up front is safety. Once you connect the battery, the AEG is ready to fire. There is no on and off switch, and the gun can definitely fire without a magazine. Diving into the box, try to be careful not to tear the pull tabs or lid. If it's an unmarked box with good foam lining, like this E&C box, it works pretty well as a temporary gun case to your first game. If it does have gun markings on the outside you want to conceal, flipping the box inside out is an old but gold method. Whatever you choose to do, always transport an airsoft gun concealed from prying eyes. You're more than likely to be greeted with some sort of instruction manual. Yes, they can sometimes be rather generic information with a generous sprinkling of spelling mistakes, but they can still offer good information, and on the back is often a very useful troubleshooting guide for, if you have trouble shooting. Taking your new rifle out and seeing it in all its glory, take some time to give it a careful once-over. Test out the selector, flip up the sights, extend the stock. Bear in mind that not all rifles have functional dummy parts like a locking bolt catch or bolt release. If there is an issue and it's under warranty, it's always best to contact your store as quickly as possible. Don't try to fix it yourself unless you are okay forfeiting that warranty. There are generally two types of batteries for AEGs, lithium polymer, or LiPo for short, or nickel metal hydride, or NiMH. Make sure you get the right charger for your battery type. Most chargers can handle only one type, and mixing types can be a big fire hazard. Quick note on battery connectors, more than likely your gun will come with a so-called mini Tamiya type plug like this one. Note that the terminals are keyed and only go in one way. It shouldn't take much force at all, and forcing while the pins aren't aligned could cause a wire to come loose. To remove, make sure you depress the release lever and try to pull it while holding the actual connector. Don't pull it from the wire. If you want the simplest battery experience, go with nickel batteries as they are a bit more straightforward to use. It's still always a good idea to read through the manual, especially when it comes to batteries. Plug the charger into the outlet first, then connect the battery to the charger, and once the light turns green, you're good to go. With a nickel battery, you can shoot it until the battery is completely dead and then charge it back up whenever you feel the need. It's safe to store these batteries at any charge level. LiPos can typically offer higher voltage with a smaller size and weight, but the cells are a little bit more picky. They really don't like being fully discharged, nor should they ever be overcharged past full, as even though the chance is slim, the cells can catch fire. LiPos typically charge through the smaller white balance port rather than the larger connector to the gun, and make sure you plug it into the right cell count slot on that charger. Any battery should be monitored while charging, but with LiPos, it's a good idea to charge it in a fireproof container, and it's not a bad idea to have a fire extinguisher nearby as well. To install your battery, most AEGs will have some sort of compartment in the stock. Some of them have a large opening at the back, but we chose this Voltura style stock to demonstrate a more complex battery install with a larger nickel battery. Start by removing the side panels, simply slide down the black tab, depress the stock adjustment lever, and they'll simply pop right off. Next, you'll want to pull back the stock for a little bit more room. Removing the rubber butt pad, you simply slide in the battery cells into the two slots on either side. It takes a bit of dexterity, but once in place, you can pop the covers right back on. Make sure you slide the black tab back over to lock the side panels into place. If you can't reach the battery connector inside the buffer tube, you can always pull the stock adjustment lever all the way down and slide the stock completely off. Reinstalling the stock, you can now connect the connectors together and then finally replace the rubber butt pad. And here we can see why the smaller LiPo battery cells are a bit more convenient to install. Simply remove the stock, stick the battery down the buffer tube, connect the connectors, then replace the stock. With either type of battery, be careful when adjusting the stock not to pinch or pull any wires. Don't force it. If there's resistance when adjusting the stock, there's likely a wire in the way. With the battery installed, it's a good idea to cycle the gun dry a few times to ensure proper operation. It's generally not advised to dry fire an AEG for thousands of cycles, but occasionally dry firing will definitely not harm the gun. A common frustration newer players encounter is called semi-lock, and happens when an AEG is in semi-auto and the gun is kind of caught mid-cycle. You'll know when you hit semi-lock when halfway through cycling it sounds like it suddenly jams up. It's typically caused by pulling the trigger too quickly and the motor not receiving enough power long enough to complete a full cycle. More often than not, putting the gun into full auto will supply power no matter where the cycle is and will release the semi-lock. Next up, you'll want to load up your magazine. Most new guns will come with a so-called high cap style magazine, which has a large internal reservoir and a spring-loaded feeding mechanism. Simply open up the door at the top of the mag and pour in your BBs. Slow is the way to go, as any BBs falling on the ground should not be picked up and reused. On the bottom of the mag, there is a winding wheel to feed the BBs from the reservoir into the feed pack. The wheel turns one way, typically towards the front of the magazine. 10 turns or so should be a good start. This winds up the internal spring and will continue feeding rounds into the gun until spring tension has run out. Insert the mag into the gun with the BBs facing towards the front of the gun, switch the selector off safe, and you're ready to shoot. You don't need to rack the bolt, simply pulling the trigger will feed in the first round. Before sighting in your optics or iron sights, you always want to adjust hop-up first. Hop-up is a system on your barrel that spins the BB backwards, making the BB generate lift for a level flight path to your target. The hop-up setting wheel is generally located near the ejection port, sometimes hidden behind a fake bolt. Refer to your manual for adjustment direction. On this E&C, rotating the wheel downwards gives a stronger backspin or hop-up setting. An easy way to see what your BB flight path looks like is to use a darker background, but if you have a bright weapon light or tracer unit to illuminate your BBs, even better. Ideally, the perfect hop-up setting will have your BBs flying straight for as long as possible. Once you've dialed in your hop-up setting, you can now adjust your optics or iron sights for your preferred range. It's always advisable to zero for a further distance rather than a closer one, as the height from your barrel to your optic or height over bore can throw off your zero up close. Personally, I love shooting metallic targets as you'll get a good auditory feedback. If you don't have access to metal targets, tried and true metal cans always work as a fun target. Once you're done shooting, you'll want to prep the gun for storage, and the first step is to clear the gun of any BBs. Simply remove the magazine and cycle the gun a few times. Try to make full, deliberate trigger pulls to ensure your spring is at the most uncompressed state for storage. No matter what battery you're using, make sure to unplug and remove from the gun for storage. Airsoft guns will drain batteries plugged in over time, and it's doubly important for LiPo batteries. AEGs are more or less considered a sealed system with grease already in the mech box, so you don't have to worry about lubrication. Adding oil, especially down the hop-up and barrel, is definitely not advised and can cause hop-up issues. With the gun in proper storage state, you can now put it back in the box for next time. Boxes like this E&C have extra storage space, so it's convenient to store everything in one place. And that's all there is to it. Hopefully you enjoyed your first shooting experience with your new AEG, and I hope you found this video useful as well. Give us a subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll catch you on the next one.